Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on time. This is the IMARES Workshop Series lecture on May 13 with our invited guest speaker, Dr. Ilya Yablokov from the University of Leeds. This is our second IMARES Workshop Series lecture to be aired online and available later as a recording. I will not be taking too much of your time. There will be a short description about the lecture and about the lecturer under the video that we will post later. But just very, very briefly, I want to make to note that Ilya is a very good and old friend of mine, and I've been following very closely his work since very early times. Today we've gathered to listen to his short speech and then discuss some of the most recent conspiracy theories or in the context of the pandemics in Russia, or mostly around Russia, as I could understand. Ilya Yablokov has recently published his book called Fortress Russia, Conspiracy Theories in the Post-Soviet World by Polity Press. And then later, actually, in fact, in late April, just a couple of weeks ago, I think, the Russian edition of the book called Русская культура заговора was published here in Russia. I'm one of the lucky ones to have obtained a copy already, but the delivery was a little bit short of time, and so I didn't have a chance to read the full book yet. But of course, as you can imagine, I've discussed many of these things and parts of the work, I think, with Ilya even previously. So I won't be taking too much of everyone's time, and I just want to give the floor to Ilya, and hope you will all enjoy this talk today.
Thank you so much, Gevorg. Thanks everyone for coming, for joining us. I have to admit it's the first time I'm using that particular program, and I might be making some mistakes, but hopefully not. So let me open the presentation. Gevorg, is it working?
Just a second. Sometimes it takes. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, you can see
I hope everyone else can see that.
Okay, cool. Right, so thanks for having me online, although I would have preferred to be offline in St. Petersburg and give the talk for the first time in a new building. I've been lucky to give a couple of talks, I guess, in the previous years in the old building, so that would have been the first time. Well, it's always the first time for something, so it's the first time for me to give the online lecture and to speak about something like really fresh, really relevant, I would say, because the conspiracy theories around COVID-19 are exceptionally popular nowadays. And it wasn't I have to say, tongue-in-cheek, in quotation marks. It wasn't my plot to publish a book at the time of pandemics, and since my book launch was planned for the mid-April, and the whole pandemic thing started pretty much a few weeks before that, so I somehow had a much bigger exposure by the media because of that, and I have therefore collected pretty big archive of various sources, various cases of conspiracy theories around COVID-19, both in Russia and, well, as it happens in the UK and the US. The UK is where I'm based at the moment. And so I'll try to discuss with you how should we look at conspiracy theories as a phenomenon, and kind of try to kind of figure out what is actually happening in our societies that become so prone to conspiracy theories, to beliefs in all sorts of conspiracy theories related to COVID-19. And so kind of we'll try to situate Russia within the global context of these pandemics and see what is special about Russia, what is kind of regular for Russian believers in conspiracy theories related to COVID-19, And certainly, it's an interesting moment for Russia as a state, for Russia as a nation, because basically the humanitarian crisis, kind of the health crisis, also overlapped with some sort of political and financial crisis. And this is a particular time for conspiracy theories to become exceptionally prolific, exceptionally mainstream. And it is quite interesting to see how Russians react to that. So where are we now in terms of pandemic-related conspiracy theories? So first of all, in the last couple of months, we have come across lots of various conspiracy theories, gossips, online speculations about the nature of this pandemic, about the nature of the virus, about those who kind of could be behind that. And what is also quite interesting is the velocity, so the speed with which conspiracy theories develop from their online presence to their offline effects. By that, I certainly mean the 5G masts that were put on fire a few weeks ago, and certainly the role that the social media are playing in today's world, and the way how conspiracy theories are being broadcast now by the social media, and how quickly they conquer the new audiences, how quickly they evolve, how quickly they actually jump from one national context to another. So in that sense, today's presentation is one of the first attempts to actually look at this global transfer of conspiracy theories from one culture to another, and certainly through the means of social media. And what makes Russia a particularly interesting case to explore is that in the last 2 decades, I would argue, the Russian political regime was very keen on using anti-Western conspiracy theories as its primary instrument to mobilize the society, especially at the important moments such as the elections or the kind of the whole Crimean affair in 2014 and the involvement in Ukrainian affairs in 2014-2016. So that is when conspiracy theories played a particularly central role and were key to helping the regime to justify its actions. And during the pandemic crisis, what we observe as scholars, as experts, is actually that the Putin's regime is changing its attitude towards conspiracy theories, especially related to COVID, but also that we can see, and I'm slightly running ahead of myself, but we see how the regime is lagging behind the social media and the latest developments on it. So first of all, in order to start talking about this particular COVID-19 related conspiracy theories, let's try to figure out what is a conspiracy theory, how should we understand it, how should we comprehend it, and what functions these ideas actually bear and play in the contemporary society. So we all know kind of the 3 rules of conspiracy theories. Everything is connected in conspiracy theories. It all happens because of some certain hidden reason, and that what we see, or at least what we perceive as a fact, is not particularly a fact. It is not necessarily the truth, because as we know from a very famous American series, The X-Files, the truth is out there. We always kind of trying to reach the truth. We are trying to figure out what is reality and what is fantasy. But in that sense, conspiracy theories are not allowing us to do that, because they always keep their secrets, and the plotters are always 1 or 2 steps ahead of us, and that's why they are always prepared a way of for us to be bluffed. And I also have to say right now kind of the essential features of conspiracy theories, because quite often we tend to call a conspiracy theory something, at least in Russia, that's what I come across many times during my classes and during my lectures or during interviews. People usually struggle to kind of to find the right definition for conspiracy theories and what can be called a conspiracy theory. So just to kind of trying to figure out what it is in order to then discuss this phenomenon. Conspiracy theory is an idea, it's an interpretation of reality or interpretation of a series of events or an event that is aimed at changing our world for the worse. This interpretation of events usually sees a hidden plan that is realized by a secret group of people or other creatures. This plan is normally successfully realized by that group. And what is also important is that the aim of this plan is not only just to make things worse for us as a community, as a group where these conspiracy theories are circulating, but it's also about the power of that group. So it is about how that particular group of plotters increases their power in that world. Well, certainly we can talk about some aliens, the extraterrestrials, some creatures like David Icke's reptilians, for example, that are not actually part of this world. They are not part of humanity. But at the same time, it is just one of the images. And behind that we can actually see what is happening behind the curtains. Behind the curtains, and conspiracy theories are about that. It's about interpreting the power balance in our world. So when we say conspiracy theory, we always kind of stumble into a particular dilemma. So when I hear conspiracy theory, how should I react? Should I be concerned that I'm thinking in conspiratorial terms? Should I kind of punish myself for behaving like a paranoid? Or maybe there is something behind that. Maybe there is some truth hidden in some sort of kind of interpretations, conspiratorial interpretations of reality. And this stigma of conspiracy theorists evolved in the middle of the 20th century. And it's related first and foremost with American scholars who got concerned with the possible rise of far-right forces after the era of Joseph McCarthy, a very famous right-wing senator who was looking for communists throughout several years, and that became one of the kind of central fears and central topics of American domestic politics right at the very beginning of the Cold War. And scholars who got concerned about the possible usage of conspiracy theories as part of political process called everyone basically who believes or produces conspiracy theories a paranoid person. So that's using a psychological term to describe an essentially social phenomenon. Although authors certainly kind of admitted that they are not professional doctors or not just professional psychiatrists to use that term. However, the idea that everyone who believes in conspiracy theories is a paranoid stayed with us and pretty much stays until today. However, in the 1990s, and in the 2000s, a range of research has been made that basically helped us to reconceptualize what conspiracy theories are. And the major bulk of research on conspiracy theories took place in cultural studies, in the field of cultural studies. And these scholars in particular kind of reinterpreted conspiracy theories as a specific way of seeing the world, interpreting the world, looking at conspiracy theories as some sort of a quick fix to reality, meaning if one believes in conspiracy theories, we must actually engage in the analysis of why that particular individual is believing conspiracy theories. And in that sense, if we look at conspiracy theories, for example, in Russia in the 1990s, and that's why I have put this still from the film Generation P based on Viktor Pelevin's novel, we can see that this idea that people believe in conspiracy theories in Russia, in post-Soviet Russia, is pretty much related to the fact that people were trying to grasp what was happening in their everyday life, in their politics, in their economical part of their life, in social and in cultural. And in that sense, Pelevin's novels perfectly reflect this kind of epistemological reality. And in fact, what we can say right now is that looking at conspiracy theories from that new perspective gives us quite a lot of material to understand why people get so keen on conspiracy theories. And if we look at conspiracy theories not as a paranoid way of seeing the world, but a healthy method to actually talk about the problems and interpret power relations in society, that can give us a lot more understanding into why conspiracy theories emerge, why they spread so quickly, and actually by studying these conspiracy theories as a part of our reality, not a part of paranoid reality, we can actually understand why people are spreading them and how can we actually prevent the spread of conspiracy theories. The next step from this 1990s perspective to the 21st century perspective was made by several scholars, among them Mark Fenster and Peter Knight and Timothy Malley, who argued that the way how people believed in conspiracy theories in the second half of the 20th century and today is gradually changing. And conspiracy theories are not only becoming the mainstream of our everyday life, and I'm sure you have noticed that yourself, but in fact, they are also changing their nature. And the concern of people who believe in one conspiracy theory or another is actually now with the power that institutions take in our society. In other words, it's what Timothy Malley calls the agency panic. So in this current very complex worlds, the global world, or in words Marshall McLuhan, the global village, we are losing our agency. We do not understand how exactly this world operates. We don't understand where the threat can come from. We don't understand how these big bureaucratic machines are actually working. So we need to figure out where a possible danger for our life, for our property, for our business can come from. And we need to sort of get back to this position of autonomy and self-control. So we need to control our life, and from that, very few pretty prominent politicians at the moment are taking this motto of let's get back control of our country. Let's make America great again if you want. It is in the same way that this idea of conspiracy and concern about the elites, concerned about institutions, concerned about certain ideas, this is how people express their concern through the beliefs in conspiracy theories. And in many ways, what we see in the current culture is also this way of seeing the world through conspiracy theories, just like the Wachowski's The Matrix did. So it actually reinterprets the world in a way as seeing human beings pretty much like tiny elements in these machines. and the machines, the system, the computers are actually using us. And through that, a lot of left-wing philosophers are reinterpreting these ideas, like the Matrix, for example, as the way how capitalist systems are exploiting human beings through credits, through loans, through mortgage, through these new kind of trends in the arts or in fashion, etc. So people are all kind of part of this huge, unbearably complex machine, and cannot really do anything to separate themselves, to reinstate their agency. So in that sense, kind of this cultural approach is helpful to understand why people believe in conspiracy theories. But then another aspect, another angle of looking at this problem is to what extent conspiracy theories can be applied in everyday politics. And in that sense, Mark Frank's approach of seeing conspiracy theories as a peculiar populist theory of power that has to redistribute resources and legitimacy between various social actors is very helpful for us to understand how conspiracy theories can respond to political problems in the society, or why politicians are especially keen on using conspiracy theories, because this helps them to put together support of their programs, to put together a lot of people who would follow them, and actually that would help them to legitimize their actions and delegitimize the actions of kind of other opponent political actors and turn them into the other. So from this point of view, from the point of view of political science, we can say that everyone pretty much believes in one conspiracy theory or another. So it is now time to reconsider the fact that only particular people believe in conspiracy theories. Everyone believes in a particular conspiracy theory. It just really depends on to what extent this conspiracy theory is relevant to the one's position, to the one's background, etc. Again, some of us are more prone to believe in conspiracy theories, some are less. Normally, kind of the research suggests that those who lose elections, as Joe Shinsky and Joe Parent put it, conspiracy theories are for losers. So when they analyzed American politics from this position of kind of the role of conspiracy theories in them, they have figured out that it's actually those who lose the election are more keen to believe in conspiracy theories rather than those who actually win the elections. But again, it doesn't mean that the winners do not share certain conspiratorial ideas. And then also we used to believe in the ideas that it's normally older people who believe in conspiracy theories. Not at all. There is no age difference. And it's through the politics of conspiracy theories, we can see that people also try to engage in the political process, but from the position of those social groups that are misrepresented in the current political state of affairs. And certainly another reason to look at conspiracy theories not as some sort of paranoid crap, but as something really important and in fact dangerous for our lives is this challenge of fake news. Because in the Web 2.0, it's not only about production and consumption. On the contrary, it's about prosuming now. So we are, by the means of the new social media platforms, as what we see during this COVID crisis across the world, we are able to produce conspiracy theories ourselves, and we are able to consume them. So we produce them, we spread them around via means of WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, but then we also consume relevant ideas and we use them again to further our production of conspiracy theories. And in that sense, we have to make a divide between conspiracy theories and fake news. Not every fake news is a conspiracy theory. In fact, fake news are very much like gossips, but they are very much weaponized as the political tool, as a character assassination instrument, and sometimes fake news can actually be related to conspiratorial ideas. So in fact, as me and my colleagues Vasily Gatov and Kirill Avramov show in the latest article in the Handbook of Conspiracy Theories, we can see a connection between fake news and conspiracy theories as a loop-back cycle. So, well, some individuals are developing conspiracy theories, then some individuals read these conspiracy theories, can produce certain fake news. These fake news are spread via online platforms, and then they fit into the narrative of conspiracy theories, and conspiracy theorists refer to these fake news as certain facts. At the same time, some fake news exploit some conspiratorial notions to make this fake news more attractive to users. And in that sense, there are a lot of elements of kind of communication here, such as exploiting existing biases, or kind of weaponizing information, or using selective exposure to information. So in that sense, fake news, we can say they are one of the major ways of transferring conspiratorial notions across the world. So after that introduction, I'd like to look at several cases of conspiracy theories in Russia during the COVID pandemic and see like what's so special about Russia and how Russia in a way chips in these global trends. So first of all, as I mentioned, conspiracy theories served for the Russian political regime for a while. It was one of the main kind of instruments to get the support for authorities. But during the COVID-19 crisis, we can see that there is a major change. First of all, traditional speakers, traditional spreaders of conspiracy theories, kind of speakers or authors, etc., or indeed some kind of high-ranking politicians, they interpreted the COVID-19 pandemic at the very beginning of it, at the very beginning of the global stage of it, as a plot, right? But then the different politicians, different speakers, they interpreted it in different ways. So some high-ranking politicians looked at the United States as a possible source of COVID-19. Others looked at China, etc. But that kind of the consensus, basically, at the very beginning was that it was the West. It was the external actor that actually used this COVID-19 pandemic to hit the economies of particular countries. But then we can see that the level of kind of the more serious the threat was taken by the authorities, the less was the scale of these anti-Western conspiracy theories. At the same time, what I can mention is that a lot of people in Russia, according to various pollsters, still believe, the majority of them believe, that conspiracy theories related to COVID-19 are real because the pandemic started as a result of some artificial development of the virus. The majority of polled people actually believe in that. So in that sense, I interpret it as the outcome of this kind of long tradition of spreading conspiracy theories. However, not every intellectual was so keen to change their minds. So for example, a few weeks ago, the magazine that is affiliated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs published an op-ed with the version that it is actually the UK that stands behind the COVID-19 pandemic because it is in the interest of the UK to undermine the world order and actually return to the position of the chief country. Well, very quickly, this article was removed from the website, and the official speaker said that whatever is published in this magazine is not the official position of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and of the Russian government. So in that sense, we can make some sort of a conclusion from that currently anti-Western conspiracy theories are not a useful element of popular mobilization for the political regime, because it actually could be threatening for the legitimacy of those actions that the regime is trying to perform to protect its people. So the next idea, which is quite interesting to see in development and how it actually transferred from abroad to Russia, is this idea that 5G communications are causing various diseases, including COVID-19. So as we all know, the biggest news related to 5G conspiracy theories came from the UK, where David Icke, one of the kind of central characters in the global conspiracy culture, the author of the theory about reptilians, suggested in an interview that it is actually the 5G masts that cause COVID-19, and it's the Chinese conspiracy that is used by the global elites. So this started to spread very quickly, first and foremost through various social media platforms, no matter how quickly the authorities try to ban that. So we can kind of suppose the origins of these concerns about 5G actually take place in real politics, because a few months ago, and even in kind of a couple of years ago, there was a very big issue of using the 5G networks produced by Chinese companies in the UK, because the authorities saw them as one of the possible threats to domestic security, because the Chinese would then be using the data of the British citizens. So that was kind of one of the most controversial facts around 5G. And so when the pandemic began, and especially after the comment made by David Icke, this kind of helped to boost the popularity of these concerns and turn them into conspiracy theories about 5G. And we all know, kind of, if you look at on Twitter, check a particular hashtag, you will see how many posts, how many news or kind of related conspiratorial news are related to the 5G masts, and who normally does that. So as we know from political studies research of conspiracy theories, there are several groups of people who involved in the spread and production and spread of conspiracy theories. Certainly the most prominent ones are intellectuals, which we all know, like David Icke, for example. But one of the biggest impacts for the spread of conspiracy theories is on ordinary citizens who use social networks anonymously or using pseudonyms, and they kind of interpret and reinterpret and add their own information and ideas to particular news. And so we see the same happening in Russia at the moment, when a lot of Russian users are sharing the news or kind of conspiracy theories in various foreign languages, adding to them their own thoughts, adding hashtags that bring us directly to conspiracy theories, and thus spread these ideas across various social media platforms and help more people to get exposed to these ideas. And this is not just the ordinary users that kind of get engaged in conspiracy theories about 5G. It's also the Russian celebrities that get involved in the transfer of conspiracy theories. So one of the most prominent cases here is the blogger, the Instagram celebrity, and former television celebrity Victoria Bonia, who a few weeks ago on her Instagram channel started to spread various conspiracy theories related to 5G, related to the global conspiracy that was threatening the health of the people. And what is interesting is that Victoria Bonia, and this is what especially curious about that particular case, that Victoria Bonia served as some sort of a kind of connector between the American conspiracy culture, where videos on Instagram, on TikTok, and on WhatsApp were spreading very quickly and massively related to 5G conspiracy theories. She used them and she posted them on her Instagram profile, and then she provided her audience, and her audience is several million of users, with her Russian interpretation of that, and added to that hashtags that are also related to that particular conspiracy theories. And she got very much engaged in the production and the transfer and production of those 5G related conspiracy theories, and was spending days basically giving interviews and having live chats with the audience about that particular conspiracy theory. So now it is actually quite an interesting question how many people started to believe in those conspiracy theories after Victoria Bonia exposed them to that. But she's not the only one, the only celebrity who is using her Instagram to actually share conspiracy theories. It's certainly not related to 5G, but for example, Kim Kardashian in the UK also shared in her social media kind of references to some kind of strange coincidences related to Wuhan 400 and the current pandemic. Wuhan 400, just let me remind you, was the kind of the virus mentioned in Dean Koontz' book, The Eyes of the Darkness. And that book became, especially today, became really kind of made headlines again because kind of this accident of having the city from where the virus started spreading and the name of the virus that was mentioned in the book certainly should be, according to conspiracy theories, more than just a coincidence. And that sort of kind of exposure to these coincidences, to these strange coincidences, and especially framing it in a very suspicious way, certainly helps spreading various conspiracy theories online. Another element of these conspiracy theories related to COVID-19, as you may know, is Bill Gates, who is often called the mastermind behind this pandemic because he allegedly created that virus, or at least financed the production of the virus that is used in different ways, and there are different interpretations of that. So interestingly enough, is that it's no matter how bizarre this idea could be and how remote it could be, because it was mostly spreading in the United States and the United Kingdom, but very quickly again through the means of social media it started to spread in Russia. And suddenly the people, kind of the celebrities and kind of famous art critics, famous sportsmen, became again engaged in the production and the transfer of conspiracy theories, which on the one hand kind of poses a very big question of what's the nature of our culture. So who can we trust now? So do we trust the experts, or do we trust celebrities, or what about trust, and who should we interview when it comes to some specific kind of social, political, and cultural issues? Because, for example, Artemy Troitsky has a certain popularity as an intellectual, as the guy who made the career in the late Soviet Union, as a musical critic, as a TV star, and he certainly has certain respect as the critic of the Russian government. So certain social groups actually trust what he says. And when Artemy Troitsky claims in his YouTube channel that he believes in the words of the French Nobel Prize winner that the virus was created artificially in a lab and then spread by the Chinese, maybe by mistake or maybe not, so this actually gives quite a lot of credit to these ideas. And whilst American audiences kind of criticize Bill Gates and rarely look at Chinese, so in the Russian case, it was some sort of a twist, or at least what I know, the twist in seeing how this chipping of the people will be happening. According to the Russian anthropologist and the collector of various urban myths, Alexandra Arkhipova, one of the latest conspiracy theories is that the authorities will be using the liquid chip to put it into everyone's body and thus help the authorities to control these human beings, or if necessary, to kill. And again, the main careers and kind of agents who transfer these ideas to the larger audiences or celebrities. So another interesting case that took place a few weeks ago is the blogger, again Instagram star Ekaterina Gordon, who commented on the distant education. She was criticizing the way how it was basically organized in Russia, and she ended up her idea saying that her statement saying that we are all going to end up in the digital slavery because of how the government is trying to implement these new technologies. So these very kind of critical of these kind of technological process ideas, they're not just about kind of the new technological advances. What stands behind them is the criticism of the government and the way how the government handles the problems. And so Katya Gordon, in that sense, her voice as the celebrity, as the person whose Instagram is also very popular, and kind of the ideas that she is spreading there are very much critical of the policies of the government during the crisis, policies related to the middle class, to the businesses, and to the poor, in that case, poor parents and school teachers who actually have to work in these new conditions of digital slavery, quotation mark. That actually resonates a lot among the Russian audiences who are very much concerned about the state of affairs in current Russia. And this kind of the celebrity status also is added to the new culture that is developing globally, and especially in Russia. And this culture of conspiracy is related to WhatsApp as the most popular media in Russia, social manager in Russia. So WhatsApp users are bombarded by various messages with the various interpretations of conspiracy theories that relate to either to the action of the government or to the actions of the global elite that is trying to destroy us. But anyways, it often happens that what celebrities are saying and the way how they frame these issues is kind of supplemented also by various WhatsApp messages that spread very quickly and kind of frame ideas in a much more radical way. Also, we can see in terms of this global traffic of ideas that Russian immigrants are also very keen on spreading conspiracy theories via their social media platforms. That's what I found by checking some Russian groups of Russian immigrants in the United States. We can see that it's these ideas of Bill Gates and kind of chipization, the global chipization of people during this COVID-19 pandemic is kind of getting quite a lot of support. But it's not just these ideas. It's also interesting how some of the users of Instagram in Russia are transferring very much American-based conspiracy theories to the Russian soil. So a few years ago in American conspiracy culture, perhaps you have come across that, the new types of conspiracy theories emerged. They are related to the child trafficking, and they accuse the kind of financial and show business and political elite in using kind of the material which they call the adrenochrome that can be used taken from the bodies of children and then used it for the pleasures of the elites. So this very strange and kind of very unique conspiracy theory that started to be spreading pretty much when Donald Trump came to the White House also kind of got the boost during the so-called the Pizzagate. Perhaps some of you heard about that. It's a story from 2016, pretty much during the elections. It was the fake news, actually, the fake news that carried some conspiratorial notions that the heads of the kind of the leadership of the Democratic Party, which at that time was the kind of the opponent of Donald Trump, is abusing kids at a certain pizza place, and they called it a name, called it Ping Pong in Washington, D.C., and basically the hashtag Pizzagate started to spread online on the 7th of November 2016. And from the 7th of November to the 4th of December, it was the 3rd or 4th of December of the same year, an individual, a guy, came into this pizza place and started shooting because he came to release those kids that were allegedly, according to those various conspiracy theories, Pizzagate conspiracy theories, they were kind of they were staying in this pizza place. Certainly, the Pizzagate idea is a part and parcel of this new conspiracy theory about child trafficking and the way how political elites are using the image of children. But what is interesting in the Russian case, these conspiracy theories never existed in the in the current Russian culture. And what we see during the COVID pandemic-19 is that certain Instagram bloggers started translating American-born conspiracy theories into the Russian language, absolutely, like literally, and they started to basically develop their audience with the ideas that at the same time criticize the current regime, but also they criticize the global elite. And thus we can see a very interesting process. Hence, kind of grassroots conspiracy theorists who before that were kind of sidelined by the mainstream conspiracy culture in Russia, which was mostly anti-Western, now take the ideas from the Western conspiracy culture, but not only use them against political elites of the world, but they also can instrumentalize the same ideas against the current political regime, which is an absolutely novel phenomenon. Well, certainly a lot of ideas around COVID-19 are based on those notions of religion, and American conspiracy milieu is certainly based, kind of part of a fundamental part of it is based on this religious exceptionalism of the United States. And in that sense, it is not surprising to see all those kind of religion-related conspiracy theories and related to the far-right movements in the US. But what is interesting in the Russian case is that the Russian Orthodox Church was also very kind of keen on denying COVID-19 and framing the COVID-19 pandemic as the kind of the fake that is created by the Satan to undermine the role of the church in the world and kind of destroy those human values that are spread by the church and by the conservative people. And it's interesting. This is the one I've got via WhatsApp. This picture, and in this picture, and the way how kind of the whole idea of coronavirus is framed here, kind of this conspiracy theory is telling us a lot about what trends kind of exist in this culture. On the one hand, it is a very kind of conservative based ideas of kind of the values that are spread by the Russian Orthodox Church. At the same time, there is a great suspicion about the policies implemented by the by the Russian government about the COVID-19, and at the same time, it is the usage of those ideas of the New World Order that were traditionally used by the American and British conspiracy theories that in the last 30 years of Russian history became also a fundamental part of the far-right individuals, people with the far-right views. And certainly another interesting kind of usage of this COVID-19 related conspiracy theories we can see on the level of international relations. So and perhaps some of you have heard about the kind of the way how the Chinese foreign minister framed the whole COVID-19 pandemic as the plot of the United States and the United States Army. In that sense, what we see on the global policy also kind of tries to get engaged in these COVID-19 conspiracy theories, but they spread all sorts of conspiracy theories related to COVID-19, but they wisely put it in the op-ed, but still kind of the notions, the ideas, they still exist, and they still kind of pretty prolific in this in the agenda of the channel. So hence we can see that despite the global crisis where the nations have to work together, we still see that a certain part of the Russian establishment, the media and intellectuals, are still kind of interested and engaged in the production of anti-Western conspiracy theories because they will help potentially to spread dissatisfaction and suspicion among the audiences that live in those Western European countries and the United States. And certainly in the United States, we know about various conspiracy theories that, for example, involve Tom Hanks as kind of one of those kind of elites involved in the production of fake news around the pandemics. And what these conspiracy theories usually refer to are these kind of the facts that Tom Hanks, because he's so important, he's so popular, and he was one of the first celebrities who actually diagnosed coronavirus. These ideas are normally not presented in the Russian milieu, in the Russian media, because they are very much kind of marginal for the Russian social and political and cultural problems. No one gives a damn about it. At the same time, the idea of QAnon, a very famous conspiracy theory in the United States that basically claims that there is a deep state that works against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump came to clean up the mess that is created by the Washington elites, and certainly the followers of the QAnon claim that the whole COVID-19 conspiracy is created by these elites, by the intelligence services, by Obama, whoever you like, and actually it is the goal of the QAnon and Donald Trump to actually resist those undermining policies that this conspiracy can bring to the American people. And in Russia, it is absolutely different way what kind of conspiracy theories are spreading on the Russian ground. As I said, conspiracy theories, in order to be useful, in order to be kind of efficient in terms of reflecting social problems, they must relate to something that the local population knows. So for lots of Americans, it is the QAnon is the values that are presented by Donald Trump that would kind of move the people into support of a particular politician. In Russia, the different ideas are spreading again via the means of WhatsApp, the Instagram, and Facebook and Vkontakte. For instance, one of the most kind of mainstream cases here is the so-called the open letter of Russian doctors to Vladimir Putin, in which these doctors, certainly it was a fake, this fake was debunked. These doctors, again, quote unquote, claim that there is no pandemic and that it's all about creating the digital prison, and that the New World Order will happen thanks to the World Health Organization, that proclaimed pandemic across the world, and that we have to be very careful to defend ourselves. Scholars very quickly kind of debunked that idea, as I mentioned, but that actually helps us to understand better what bothers Russians more than anything. It is this idea of trust to the authorities, and what is importantly to the doctors, because doctors still is the central figure in this process, and the trust and the kind of the break of trust in these individuals in this particular profession can cost a lot to the society. And since in Russia there was kind of a widespread crisis of trust, and since trust is in the center of this conspiratorial communication, we can see that through the analysis of these conspiracy theories, we can see that a widespread of mistrust to the authorities, to the specific professions, to the specific institutions, and to the global elite in general makes conspiracy theories one of the most popular ways to respond to the social and economic and political problems of today's world during the pandemic crisis. But what I would suggest, as we all are in some sort of a quarantine and pretty stressful mode, we should not let our sense of humor decay. This is the meme that was passed to me by my American friends, who said that one of the most popular kind of conspiracy theories on Twitter, on 4chan, now 8chan, sorry, is that this idea that during the Reagan time, all the birds, due to some chemical catastrophe, all the birds died, and all the birds were replaced by the drones funded by various intelligence services. So the current COVID-19 conspiracy of the government is actually to keep people inside of their houses and help intelligence services to replace batteries in those drones so that the birds would fly again and report on those citizens whom the government considers dangerous. So in that sense, what I'd like to open the floor for your questions, and I hope that some of those things which I mentioned today would be helpful to resist this wave of various conspiracy theories and fake news in your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it just takes a second for my video to come live. Thank you very much, and thanks for that last slide. I'm just gonna boast and tell you that I do have the second one, the Russian one, Russian book of yours. Okay, excellent timing, I think, and I hope that everybody else is with us right now. Dear guests, dear friends, let us know if you have any questions, and feel free to either turn on your mic, or camera, and speak directly, or put it in the chat room. Just to avoid interrupting each other, it will be probably easier and better to raise a hand, let's say, or write it here in the chat. Any questions or comments, dear friends, audience? Well, while everybody's thinking, Ilya, I think I may have missed it, or maybe it's in the book. One thing I was thinking, well, there's two things. One I have discussed with you, and it was very much personalized. I was asking if you have any ready-made recipes on how to struggle against conspiracy theories at home when you have your friends or family members, someone who is, especially under these conditions of the self-isolation, etc. We're all slightly depressed, and then you find someone, watching lots of videos one after another, and just getting even more and more depressed, and finding it hard. And this conspiracy theory is not becoming just a matter of humor or of discussion of a kind in an academic environment, but rather something directly related to your daily life. And for people about whom you care, and you realize that they're just being too much under the influence of all those stories, how do you help them? How do you explain? I mean, you can't read an entire lecture, right?
No, I mean, it's pointless, because this person is not going to to listen to you? That's a good question. I'm afraid there is no magic pill or magic bullet, whatever you suggest. It's first of all, conspiracy theories, as I mentioned, they become popular because of the level of trust. And unless we fix the trust in the institutions, in the elites, in again in the knowledge, in the expertise, there is no way of actually trying to break this wave of conspiracy theories. I would say that from my personal experience, certainly, it's pointless to argue with the person who believes in conspiracy theories. It's better to listen, no matter how difficult it is. I must admit that it's not always that I can tolerate that, and especially it is painful to hear from your relatives that kind of who share those ideas, because you try to explain how complex the world is, and then you basically hear that it's all about the Masonry, the Jews, the Americans, kind of CIA who actually tries to, or Bill Gates who actually tries to break your world. What I would suggest, it's helpful, is to try and show alternative examples. To find maybe some examples of how certain ideas, conspiratorial ideas, have been debunked by the media, to show the kind of the flaws in logic. And we know examples of it, so there are some very useful websites for that, both in Russian and in English, kind of trying, if you still have kind of good contact, good communication quality with the people with whom you are kind of debating on these issues, you can try and kind of show them these examples and try to kind of call their sanity, and kind of ask them to consider various options. And hopefully they will listen to you, and hopefully they will look at it, and hopefully they will question more of that. But again, it really depends on how critical thinking is developed in this particular person, and to what is the biography, the background, personal background of that person. Because if, let's say, in Russia, it is equally young people and old people who believe in conspiracy theories. It just depends what kind of conspiracy theories they believe. And but most probably those people who are older, let's say 50 plus, or even kind of 45 plus, and they just been introduced to these new media platforms such as YouTube or ВКонтакте or Одноклассники, it gets much harder to argue with them, because their personal traumas, let's put it that way, of the 1990s, of the late 1980s, kind of overlap now with the new culture of conspiracy theories that was developed either by the media or by the state. And so their personal views in many ways are now shaped by the traditional and the new media. And we are in a difficult, I have to admit, in a very difficult situation in that sense, how to make those people start being a little bit critical about what they see and what they consume. And I'm afraid I have no concrete answer on that.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is actually about the relation to media and to popular things like blogging, Insta bloggers, YouTube bloggers, etc. To what extent this creation, production, or reproduction of some, at least, of conspiracy theories has become just merely doesn't have anything behind it, or any political reasons, and just serving some kind of a business model, just to get more subscribers, more advertisement or something. I mean, are there any studies on the, let's say, economics of conspiracy theories online, for example?
It depends. So, for instance, there is guy Alex Jones. I'm sure everyone knows this guy. In his case, I think it is about making a lot of money. and using his media as the way to sell the stuff he has in his online shop. And I highly recommend to watch John Oliver's take on Alex Jones and what he sells in his online shop. It's a great way of actually debunking and grilling that guy. It is certainly about the money. So for conspiracy theorists who have hundreds and thousands and sometimes millions of followers, that is a very good way of promoting ideas and promoting stuff and selling this stuff. Luckily for us, the YouTube algorithm has been changed, and now we can hope that an individual who starts clicking on certain videos will not be taken eventually to watch some really crazy stuff produced by a certain conspiracy theories. But this is actually how YouTube helped a lot of major conspiracy theorists in the US become promoted and become popular. In the case of Russian Instagram bloggers, I would say that Instagram, and this is my understanding, Instagram is not a platform where you can make a lot of money by spreading such ideas, because still Instagram is owned by Facebook, and you can easily be blocked, right? If they finally reach you, right? And I'm not sure if there will be some advertisers who would easily go to such profiles, to such individuals, and promote their stuff there, because it's such a toxic information. As for Victoria Boni and Katya Gordon, I think they were kind of genuine, not genius, maybe not yet, genuine, because I think they read a lot around this kind of industry, and they realized that the current crisis will also hit their income. And so for them, it's one of those personal stories that they took very personally and started spreading those ideas without actually double thinking what they are doing. And the thing is, they have to think twice before spreading, and everyone who has quite a big audience must think twice before sharing that kind of views. What is going to happen to them? I'm pretty sure nothing's going to happen to them. Their income will depend on other stuff, and they are getting their money from other stuff. I think that kind of in terms of kind of in general economy, these conspiracy theorists are getting their money either from public events to which they sell tickets, or it's sales of items that is used by Alex Jones. But again, that one must have a very well developed market of these ideas and the flocks of people who will be consuming these ideas and who feel a certain loyalty to that particular conspiracy theorist. And I think Russia is slightly kind of step or two steps behind the United States in that sense.
Thank you very much. I think we have a question from Molly. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So I know that there's a problem. You guys can hear and see me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's a problem with some mainstream media outlets. I'm a journalist myself, because you have to walk the line between covering theories to debunk them, but also by covering them, you sometimes are giving them this legitimacy. It's like when there's a terrorist attack, sometimes media outlets don't publish the terrorist name because they don't want to give this person more fuel for their cause. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering what you think the role of media outlets in a time like this is. What's their responsibility to debunk these theories, especially things that are so ridiculous yet pervasive, like QAnon? Should media outlets be covering them, or should they just be letting them be explained by the Alex Joneses of the world?
But it really depends on how you cover them. So you can cover QAnon these are the guys that exist, right? And they represent certain views of the American audience. Yes, these views are bizarre. Yes, they are to a certain extent marginal, but they still shape a certain worldview of I'm afraid of millions, a few millions of Americans that in the key states can change the fate of the elections. Would you agree with that? Right? So if we kind of try to exclude those individuals, we can end up, and we actually in the situation where a certain group of people say you cannot trust the mainstream media, and hence they will not be listening to this mainstream media, whatever you say. Then there is a group of people like us, for example, right, who know about these kind of developments. They know that these people exist. They listen to them. They read what they say. Sometimes we get really irritated. Sometimes we laugh at them, but we realize that these people exist, right? But then there is quite a meaningful amount of people who don't know what is happening. And if the mainstream media is not covering, not talking about them, not trying to understand what they're saying, we are in a situation that, well, let's call it echo chamber. So we end up in our own echo chamber, which is related to one specific issue that is called reading and liking what other friends like, right? And Givorka Vitikan is very good at kind of, stalking through those alternative ideas and actually kind of raising interesting questions, in the conversations. I am sure you had conversations with him. So he should be a role model in that sense. He likes to look at things differently, kind of read various speakers, read various sources to make up the mind, right? Unfortunately, some media, but I'm not trying to criticize, right? Not saying that all the mainstream media are the same. It wouldn't be right. But what I would like to say is that the so-called mainstream media, if this mainstream media exists, if we kind of contemplate on that idea that there is some sort of mainstream media, right? There are some quality media, let's call them that way, that currently have issues with the agenda. And this agenda is either shaped by the audience that is ready to pay for their services, meaning I'm happy to subscribe for the New Yorker because New Yorker is grilling Trump regularly and I hate Trump, therefore I will be reading New Yorker on a regular basis. It's an example. And that's why I will be paying New Yorker. And if New Yorker does something kind of super positive about Trump, right? We might actually lose a certain part of the audience in that respect, right? So there is a demand to cater to a certain audience, especially when the online media, when the process of digitalization requires the new means of funding this quality media, right? So there is one problem, but the second problem, which also is important, is related to the intellectual level of journalists. I apologize in advance to everyone who is a journalist, but my second topic of study is journalism in Russia and journalism in Central and Eastern Europe. So I know a lot of journalists personally. Some of them are really smart guys, really critically thinking individuals. But sometimes you come across some materials in the media, such as, okay, let me give you one example from the New York Times a few weeks ago. And the material claimed that Vladimir Putin worked for years to undermine the faith of the Americans into the science, right? And kind of the material, basically, this article claimed that since Vladimir Putin, okay, it's kind of the chain of events, kind of the chain of arguments, Vladimir Putin used to work in the KGB, and KGB was notorious for spreading fake news and propaganda and disinformation across the world and the United States. So they successfully spread those ideas that the CIA created AIDS, which is true, which was a really efficient disinformation campaign on the part of the KGB, but perhaps the one which is really successful in its outcome, but one of the few, right? But the fact that Vladimir Putin worked in the KGB, now he doesn't like the United States, and now his hackers helped to help Trump to win, and you see the chain of logic. And now Americans do not believe experts, and they do not believe that the medicine and medical experts. And this is perhaps this is the outcome of the Vladimir Putin's hackers and the Russian channel RT. So that's basically what this article boils down to, and this is hugely problematic for the quality media like New York Times to do things like that, to publish things like that. And I guess the problem here also arises from the intellectual capacity of some journalists in the quality media that, first of all, must be critically engaging with the topics they don't like. For example, Vladimir Putin and Russian disinformation, whatever. But they should also look for all sort of kind of points of view, kind of go to the experts that which are not only in their telephone book, but also those who publish various, maybe sometimes even critical materials of critical articles on, let's say, American domestic policy, American foreign politics. They should actually know better the terrain that they're working. And so maybe in that case, it's going to help the so-called quality media to increase their reputation and increase the numbers of audience. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. I think we have another question from Nodar. Nodar, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Greetings.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. So my question, is there a conspiracy theory that you've kind of thought there may be some credence to it, or these conspiracy theories don't come from nowhere or don't appear out of thin air. There are some facts sometimes behind them, and sometimes some of those facts are verifiable and they're true. I mean, the entire story may not be true and realistic, but some of the facts behind it can have some credence. So is there a conspiracy theory about which you've seen some facts and you've seen truth and reality behind those facts, and you've been this conspiracy theory may not be entirely conspiracy, and it may have some truth to it.
May not be entirely theory, but on the contrary, conspiracy.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question. It's from the top of my head. I don't think I can name one so quickly, but I would say that. Okay, let's have a look at kind of today's numbers of how many people are dead from COVID-19, right? And let's just ask a few questions. So, do you think that the governments, not only the Russian government, but in general, right, would be interested in decreasing the official numbers of people who died from coronavirus? Well,
yes.
Probably yes, because they all need to run through elections. In that, it doesn't matter whether are you from Georgia?
Yes.
So the Georgian government would run through elections, right? So they need to kind of answer to the demands of the population. And I would say, hey, you have completely, utterly failed, right? So can we yes, kind of raise this question, are we told the whole truth, right? Then perhaps, yeah, well, for example, in the case of the Russian government now, can we say that the Russian government might be hiding the real numbers? Well, probably the probability exists, right? And there are certain reports about that. So how would we deal with that? Essentially conspiracy theory. Well, we are going to use that as scholars, as people who critically think and perceive information as, yeah, we do have some mistrust in authorities. We do know that authorities sometimes can lie in order to hide their misdeeds or their failures. And it's authorities around the world are doing that. There's a great book by Catherine Olmsted, which is called Real Enemies, that argues that the American government and American intelligence throughout the 20th and 21st century lied so many times that the popularity of conspiracy theories about the government is explained precisely by those lies. Can the Russian government lie to its people? Easy. Can the Ukrainian government lie to its people? Also probable. Can the Georgian government? Of course, right? So it's very, very probable that it can happen. And it is a conspiratorial idea that we should contemplate, but I must warn you, it must be just one of the options in which events can unfold. Do you know what I mean? So a conspiratorial reading must be just one of those, because we should always question our own ideas and our own statements. So yes, they can, but then we can actually check, right? We can ask for the real numbers, or we can check we can do an investigation if you want. And that's what the journalists do, right? They actually do investigations and they figure out what the truth is. So, but if we stick to the conspiratorial, after thinking all these options, and we stick to the conspiratorial explanation, then it's a problem maybe, because then most probably we already have the answer to our question. And from the point of view of kind of understanding, comprehending the world, that is the wrong way of doing things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Sorry, Nodar, did you have any further comment or question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just interrupted you without thinking that you may have further feedback. Okay. Well, since journalism has been mentioned several times, and I know you're working now on your book on media. We have actually, well, at least two of our current students, I think, have experience in journalism, either currently or in the past. And I can see in the list right now only Mikko. I don't know if Mikko is still actually with us or no. And if you'd like to, Mikko, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you in your experience or in training have come across this. I mean, is there any recipe for you as a journalist, how to deal with conspiracy theories, or how to make sure you don't have them in your text, or maybe you don't really need to think about that?
Well, I think fact checking is a normal part of the work of any journalist, or at least it should be. So like if you don't want to publish or believe or like give credibility to conspiracy theories, you just try to check the facts. And I also think that it's not a good business idea in the long term for any newspaper or any media organization to spread conspiracy theories or badly researched information, because I think credibility is the asset that the media companies are actually selling to most of their public. Of course, there are people who might get annoyed if the New Yorker magazine publishes a positive story about Donald Trump, but still, in the long term, I don't think many serious media organizations think that way, because most of the people are quite smart anyway, and they want to pay for real information. Yeah, I don't know what I have to say. I think. Yeah.
Well, I would say that it's certainly it's really good that you kind of perceive the public as kind of most of the public as very smart people, but I wouldn't disagree on that. But I would just say that people still suffer from biases, right? And we still suffer from selective exposure, right? So we tend to read and we tend to agree with the information that comes to us from our friends, relatives, contacts, and related to some events. And we sort of kind of say, well, yes, that's what I also think about. And in a way, you can find yourself caught in the situation where you will basically swimming or kind of living, existing in your own information bubble, right? And you will be subscribing for the news, for the information, for the outlets that would be providing you with information. So that's what happened. Like that was happened after 2016 with, for example, the Russiagate, when a lot of quite sane and smart American people started to believe that Russia hacked the elections and Donald Trump is in the White House thanks to the Russian hackers. No matter how well we studied now this subject, and we know more or less quite well the potential of the Russian media abroad, of RT in particular, of the hackers, and all these things. I'm pretty sure that if the major American newspaper, okay, we are not talking about Russian press because it has so many of its own problems, right? And the millions of journalists around the world are looking precisely at the likes of the New York Times, Washington Post, New York, etc. Right? Russian media have their own problems. We can discuss them too. But if the major global news outlet publishes, so there was someone who wrote this piece, there was someone who read it and hasn't asked questions, and then clicked the button publish, and this news actually went to the press, it went to newspapers, and it went to the website, right? Then it means we can make this conclusion that the quality of expert knowledge of these gentlemen is very poor, but this is what they spread around among their audience, which can be pretty smart, but their audience might also, thanks to their actions, live in a certain information bubble or echo chamber, let's put it that way, right? So that means that, yeah, certainly in the long run, conspiracy theories are not going to be helpful, especially if the media is trying to be a quality media and thinking and kind of values its reputation. But we should always be very careful, even when it comes to the quality media, how they say, what they say, and kind of question even their publications.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ilya. Well, dear participants, this is, I think, yeah, it's been exactly an hour and a half, I think, that we have started. And I will probably make a last call for the questions or comments or feedback, anything that you have a last minute, thought that you wanted to add. So that's your last opportunity. Otherwise, Ilya, once again, really thank you very much for joining us. As you rightly noted in the very beginning, you have already delivered lectures at EUSP for a couple of times, and I hope that online format is good, but it's less preferable. So I very much hope that the next time for our workshop series or for any other event that we meet offline and you come to ESP and to
I
St.
so
Petersburg.
look forward to that.
All right, yeah, that's excellent. Okay, I see. Just a second. I'm sorry. All right. Okay, yeah. Thank you, says Claire, and I assume everyone else. I'd like to, on behalf of everyone, thank you once again.
Thank you.
An applause to you. I will turn off the recording right here, I guess, and yes. Okay.